Every time we fly, we're putting our trust in this huge, invisible web of safety systems. And these systems are never more important than at the real edges of the world. Those remote airports where the nearest town and the nearest help could be hours away. So how on earth do you guarantee safety in a place where you can't just dial 911 for the local fire department?
And that's the big question, isn't it? When a plane runs into trouble on some isolated airstrip, maybe surrounded by ocean or mountains, who's coming to the rescue? The stakes are just unbelievably high, and there is absolutely zero room for error.
Well, the answer, thankfully, isn't left to chance. It's all laid out in incredibly detailed manuals like this one, all based on international standards. This is the master blueprint, the playbook for preparing for the absolute worst-case scenario. So let's dive in and see how this plan turns potential chaos into a very calculated, very fast response.
Okay, so the first thing we have to get our heads around is the mission itself. Because in an aircraft fire, the main goal isn't actually what you might think it is. It's all about one very specific strategic objective: controlling the chaos just long enough to save lives.
It's a principle called the critical area concept. And here's the key. The number one goal isn't to put the entire fire out immediately. It's to beat back the flames right around the body of the plane. The manual is crystal clear on this. You protect the fuselage, you create a survivable path so people can get out. It's not about saving the airplane, it's about saving every single person inside. Rescue comes first, always.
And that critical area isn't a guess, it's calculated with incredible precision. The whole plan, all the resources, they scale up based on the biggest plane that airport regularly services. So a tiny airstrip might just need to be ready for a small 9-meter plane. But a massive Category 10 hub, they have to be prepared to secure the entire 90-meter length of a giant like an Airbus A380. The bigger the plane, the bigger the fire you're planning to fight.
So the mission is defined, but now the next, and maybe the most critical factor of all, comes into play: time. In an emergency like this, you're not just fighting a fire. You are in a desperate race against the clock.
2 to 3 minutes. That's the window. And I want to be really clear here. This is not a goal. It's a hard and fast requirement. Why so incredibly fast? Because in a post-crash fire, that 3-minute mark can be the line between a successful evacuation and an unthinkable disaster. The first fire truck has to be on scene, anywhere on that airfield, and actively fighting that fire within that tiny window.
And it really is a carefully choreographed dance against time. That first vehicle gets there in under 3 minutes and starts the initial attack. But the plan demands that any other required trucks show up less than a minute later, at the 4-minute mark. The whole point is to establish a relentless, uninterrupted flow of foam or water to keep that escape path open. No breaks, no delays.
Okay, but hitting those kinds of response times is just impossible if you don't have the right tools ready to go at a moment's notice. And this brings us to the RFF toolkit. This is where the unique, intense challenges of a remote location really start to become clear.
Just take a look at the sheer amount of water they need just to produce the fighting foam. This table, right out of the manual, shows that a medium-sized Category 7 airport has to have over 12,000 liters of water ready to go. A big Category 10 airport? Over 32,000 liters. That's basically a backyard swimming pool's worth of water, on wheels, ready to be sprayed in minutes.
And that right there gets us to the heart of the problem for a remote airfield. There are no fire hydrants out there. There's no municipal fire department just down the road to call for backup. And, maybe most critically, the nearest hospital could be 30 kilometers away or even more. When you're that isolated, you are totally 100% on your own.
So how in the world do you solve for that kind of profound isolation? You do it through obsessive, meticulous, detailed planning. This chart here is a fantastic illustration of how it works. It's part of the process for choosing the right RFF vehicles. Planners have to consider everything: the airport's category, sure, but also water availability, the local terrain, everything. They're making sure the trucks they choose are perfectly engineered for that one specific, challenging place. They aren't just buying a fire truck. They're creating a totally self-sufficient rescue system from the ground up.
But here's the thing. You can have the most advanced, custom-built equipment in the world, but it's all just useless metal without the right people operating it. And that brings us to the final, and honestly, the most important piece of this entire safety puzzle, the human factor.
The manual is very, very clear about this. It says RFF personnel have to be resolute,
They need to have initiative, and they have to be able to make smart decisions under the most intense pressure imaginable. We're talking about a job that demands a really unique blend of physical skill and serious mental toughness.
So how many people do you actually need? Well, once again, there's no guesswork involved. It's all calculated using something called a task resource analysis, or TRA. Planners literally sit down and map out every single action that needs to happen in a worst-case scenario, from driving the truck and operating the water cannon to pulling survivors from the wreckage. They do all this to figure out the absolute minimum crew size needed to get it all done.
And this is the crucial takeaway. This whole analysis completely changes for a remote airport. If that nearest hospital is 30 kilometers away, the TRA is going to demand more firefighters trained in advanced first aid, because they're the first responders and the medics for a while. If water is limited and has to be trucked in, you need more people just to manage that supply chain. And because you know help is hours away, the on-site crew has to be big enough to handle the entire incident by themselves for a much, much longer time. The airport's isolation literally dictates the size and the skill set of its rescue team.
So in the end, what you have is a complete interlocking system. The meticulous planning dictates the exact type of specialized equipment you need, which is then operated by a crew whose size and skills have been precisely calculated to overcome the unique challenges of their remote environment. It all comes together to form this powerful, self-reliant safety net at the edge of the world. It really makes you think, doesn't it? This is just one of who knows how many invisible systems all humming away in the background, all designed to keep our world running safely. It kind of leaves you wondering, what other hidden safety nets are all around us, working perfectly in total silence?